So I have hit the point in my perpetual self-improvement in our current circumstance where I actually cook like an adult again. Like I've learned to make decent ramen. I've made gyudon, all the Weeaboo staples.
Oh, fantastic! I've been doing a little bit of that. It's been a whole lot of chicken, because it's affordable. There's a lot of it in a package and shit like that. I made caramel chicken, which is this like kind of like kung pao adjacent thing that I know how to do. But it fucks up your cast iron. I don't know why you're supposed to cook it in the cast iron, so that it gets hot enough, that it caramelizes or whatever, right? But like if you cook sugary shit in a cast iron, there's like not quite a cup of sugar, brown sugar in this recipe, right? Then it melts and it sticks to the goddamn thing. So like now, like my perfectly seasoned cast iron, my child is just sitting there with all sorts of sticky shit on the sides.
Wow,
of it
your
now,
cast iron is sitting there saying, "You said you loved me," and you have to look down at it and say, "Stella, it's gonna be better next time. I'm gonna cook better food on you. I'm gonna clean you better. Please love me, Stella. Please, don't go."
Next time I'm using my fucking my Dutch oven, because it is, what's the fucking word? It's not laminated. That's plastic. It's
I think laminated is what you do to a decent report card in middle school, if memory serves. Something in that genre.
It's got glaze, like the ceramic glaze that like makes it easier to clean and shit like that, and easier to see what you're doing.
So it's like a middle school art project. Like some of that pottery I made
yes.
and my mom pretended was good.
Yes, except it cost $300.
Well, those are just the taxes going towards your public school.
No, so
just
next
kidding.
time I make
We
this
didn't
recipe,
pay
I'm gonna cook it in
taxes.
that.
I legitimately think my dad might be in jail for that. Like, I have no idea what he's up to. Like, he could be on Mars. He could be in Wuhan. He could be just on one of those cruise ships.
Didn't you say something like he was going there or something? Or am I remembering someone else?
No, his wacky thing was that he went down to the south out of nowhere.
Huh.
I don't know who went to China that we know in our orbit.
Yeah, someone I know, someone in my orbit, like, actually just went to, like, Wuhan, like, sometime in November, I want to say. And I cannot remember. Yeah, right? Tough break.
Yeah, don't take their business advice.
Yeah.
Not necessarily bad education, but definitely bad luck or bad instincts. Or maybe God just hates them a little. Sometimes it's like that. Sometimes, I don't know, spiritually aligned agnostics and atheists like to talk about the universe. Sometimes the universe is giving you a plague of frogs and locusts, or just a plague of plague.
Just the regular kind. Kind of boring. Nothing too amazingly flashy.
Kind of boring. Not as flashy as like a colony slamming through your atmosphere, wiping out half of the human life on it.
Oh, are we done with the banter?
At some point, we need to acknowledge the robotic elephant in the room, or weird elephant-looking robot built by Xeon. Xeon really gets experimental with the mech designs. It's an interesting distinction they build between the, I don't know, engineering personalities of the two factions.
It gets weirder and weirder as the series go on. Not weirder, but like more, we'll say, idiosyncratic as the series go on.
Oh yeah, what was the one with the... What's the name of the one that has the big triangular base that looks like a dress sort of kilt thing?
I think you're talking about the Kublai? Haman Karn's, kind of like big, sort of freely looking motherfucker.
Oh, I'm sorry, the other one with the thing that looks like sort of a dress, like more of like all the way down to the gown, like it doesn't have feet, it just floats.
Oh, that's the Xiong.
Yeah, the Xiong.
We're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit here, because the Xiong shows up in like towards the end of this series right here. So we can leave discussion of that particular mobile suit to later on down the line.
True. That's
a couple episodes from now.
Pure endgame. That's around when Thanos gets his head chopped off. I'm going to close my door real quick because wind chimes are coming in, and as cool as it would be to reproduce the late series' new type sound effect, I think that might get on some people's tits. So I'm gonna close that real quick. Hold on.
You got the wind chimes on your end, and I've got the arbitrary bathtub gurgling on my end. I don't know if like everyone's bathtub does this, but mine certainly does. Like I want to say half of the apartments I've ever lived in has had the arbitrary bathtub gurgling, and it goes on for a couple of minutes, and I don't know what causes it because I'm not a plumber and I do not have any sort of experience with that sort of thing. But is it like the ghost of thousands of showers?
That's my running theory. I like to call them possessed pipes.
Possessed by that's I mean, like I think I more or less understand why radiators make noise, but like just drains doing thing that perplexed me just a little bit.
I hear that. I think, did somebody drown on this property at some point? Is that what we're getting here?
I mean, this is a pre-war building, so I have to imagine at some point. It's like this. I think I looked it up. This was built in 1921, 1923. So it's early 20s. At least I'm gonna put it in the neighborhood. 5 people have died in this apartment building. Maybe in this particular apartment. It's got a good number of units. I want to say it's like somewhere in the 60s. So.
Well, you dodged double digits, so it's not super haunted, but it's moderately haunted. Enough that the rent goes down by $200, and they say you can put that
be the fucking day
money towards a specialist priest. But yeah, I guess we're gonna get started with talking about Gundam in earnest. But first, a plug from our sponsor, SeeMoreEvil.com. Yes, SeeMoreEvil.com.
Hey, wait a minute. I think the 8 episodes that we covered for this one is kind of... They're not the best 8 episodes of the series, but they do have a couple of my favorite episodes of the series because they do have the two of, I want to say, the best moments of, all of 79, which is, of course, the death of Garmazabi, and which, is iconic. It kind of changed anime.
A hilarious moment on multiple intentional levels, too, which is nice. I spend a lot of time just making jokes at things that aren't intentionally funny. And it's nice to have something that just has a real, just grim underlay of intentional fucking irony, and there's a character laughing with you. And all the way to the sociopathic bank. I
don't know if we were ever expected to root against Char Aznavour after that, because he just had such flair leading up to that moment, right? Just this irresistible flair leading up to that moment. He was clearly smarter than he was a monster, right? He had style, and then he does this.
That's actually a question. So when it comes to these older 42 to 50 episode shows, right? Question to you, since you're more plugged in on this kind of thing.
Yeah.
In the production of these things, do these only come out when all of these episodes are done, or are they sort of seeing the reception to the first 10 when they're working on episode 30 or something?
A lot has changed over the years. I don't really know what the pipeline looked like back then. I do know that these days, right, they will finish whatever the length the season is and then air it. Just have the whole thing just done. Mm-hmm. I don't know about then. I know for a fact that as early as the 90s, right? Because Neon Genesis Evangelion is what I'm going to reference now. I know that.
Oh, that's the story. That's the show about the kid who stands in the dark room, right? And then people put memes on it.
He does a whole lot of that darker. Yeah. I don't believe that they were done with the final episode by the time they aired the first one, I think. But again, don't quote me on that. I'm fairly certain this is the case.
Got it. I won't quote you on it. I won't excerpt that and put it on Instagram for the world to hear.
Because I don't know if they just spent most of their budget up front on that series, and then we got the elevator scene later because they didn't have any money left.
Okay, so the only reason I bring up this whole episode timing thing is that I watch way too much pro wrestling. So part of me almost likes to imagine the people seeing the reaction to blame it on the circumstances of your birth, and just seeing the reaction going, oh my god, he's so over, push this guy to the moon. Fuck Giran, we have our new final boss built in right here. Because that's an amusing scenario for me to imagine. Like, obviously Tomino is a expert writer, so he probably has way more of a long view approach than that. But it's fun to pretend.
Well, here's some evidence that I have that maybe it was not all done in one batch. I'm going to reference Double Zeta here. In Double Zeta, right? You notice that the front half of that series is deeply fucking silly. This was mostly because after Zeta Gundam, the network, I think...
The network said, hey, we've been doing some market testing, and Hope tests really
like, what
well.
What the fuck was that, asshole?
It seems audiences are really into Hope, and if you could just, like, sprinkle some of that around the...
Maybe just a teensy
everything going
Hope
forward, that would be great.
So what ends up happening, right, is he makes the show kind of silly. It is definitely not in line for what his vision for this series is, right? But he plays ball, and then I think halfway through or so, he gets confirmation that they'll give him the money to make Char's counterattack. So he was like, okay, fuck it, I'm not holding out for that anymore. So then he has it be a Gundam series for the rest of the show.
Yeah, that one,
which
really
makes me believe that they were kind of doing this a little bit more, like not episode to episode, but probably core to core.
There's this line in fucking episode 9, by the way. I just want to talk about this for 1 second because I got a little laugh out of it. After all of the chatter about genocide that preempts every episode, and this is the batch of episodes where the character of Zeon comes more into focus, like you see more of that neo-monarchist fash look of theirs, and you see the royal family.
Yeah, they were I don't want to say generic, but just a little bit generic early on. They didn't really have time to just load all that exposition.
Yeah, they didn't really color in the conflict until now, and I think it comes in well here. But there's a line here before that begins in earnest that this series immediately puts to light, which is Fraubo saying, "The Federation and Zeon are the same." No, they aren't. Are you high?
No, god damn it.
The Cylons have a better moral argument than Zeon.
I know why Frau Bo was written to be the way she was written. Like, I understand it. It's just so regretful that she was.
Yeah,
and that we sort of have to...
it's not on a perfect wavelength.
Like, and like the children character, too, that she always... seems to be in the presence of. And it does her character no credit either. Because, I associate Frau Bo with A, the dumbass lines that they give her like that, and B, just the 3 annoying screaming children.
I mean, you're right. It's like Pavlovian conditioning, only instead of a treat, you get an electric shock in the form of these 3... I normally wouldn't describe children as shrill. That's really more of an older person adjective, but I would call these 3 children shrill.
These 3 children are shrill, yeah. So I'm trying to be fair, right, to her character. I'm trying to be fair to, who she is as a person and what she has been through. Because, Amuro, right, actually just unambiguously suffering from post-traumatic stress. But at the very least, he didn't see his parents, blown the fuck to shit in front
Frau
of him.
has the unfortunate distinction of the first dead parents in the franchise.
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah, and
didn't think about that, yeah. I mean, like, I guess, the first on-screen dead parents in the franchise, because...
Okay, yes, half the parents are dead.
Half the parents of, like, literally everyone. I don't even think we ever learn about Bright Noah's family.
Just presumed gone.
I think Bright Noah just kind of materialized one day. Just because Gundam needed the Eternal Captain, and the universe just sort of formed him out of star stuff.
Do you think he was, like, born a lieutenant?
Well, he's an ensign in this show. So if he was, then, he got up to some shit and got himself in trouble enough to be demoted.
Yeah.
But I guess 19 years before the start of this series, he sort of, stepped into being. I think in the supplemental material, he's mentioned as being from Earth. I think he was from Hong Kong.
That sounds familiar.
That's like that.
I think I remember that from my old wiki diving days before I discovered the sunlight and Tinder and all that shit.
Yeah. So that's
By the way, I just noticed in my notes for the same episode 9 here. I don't know why I wrote about Frau a bunch. Maybe it's just some sort of deep-seated inner sexism bubbling to the surface or something. But I wrote Frau, an early model of simp. So you can see I'm in a deeply intellectual mode here.
I mean, yes and no. The thing about Frau Bow, and this isn't just her getting tossed, obligatory lines, that they had to put in there for whatever reason, that someone had to say. This is actually just the way that she is written. I never really liked the sort of sense of propriety that she has, towards Amuro. Like, she sort of has decided that she is his keeper, and he doesn't seem to appreciate that very much, and it doesn't, like, it's not a good look for her.
It's not a good look for her. It's not terrible dramatically, though. Like, if he just rolled with it, you might be thinking, well, this is annoying, but I guess it's at least used in a way that...
Well, I kind of like it as a, though it does nothing to make me like her, it's a very realistically written sort of, I don't want to say toxicity because Jesus, that it's just so fucking overused.
Oh, just rendered meaningless.
But it's a very...
Yeah. But I get what you mean, though. It's been rendered meaningless, and some people do, I don't know, express their personal wound that way.
That one thing does make Frau interesting and also kind of piss annoying, is just how she has decided that she is the what would you call it? Like
team mom?
The caretaker. Yeah, the team mom, like it's just the guardian of Amuro's well-being, and she's not very good at it. Is the other thing.
Oh, not at all. And it's kind of funny to watch, I don't know, a Mirai or a Sayla come through and do it effortlessly, and then she just sort of sees in the corner.
It's Mirai, Sayla, like even Bright in his way are so much fucking better at it than she is.
In his taekwondo method. Fucking wild.
I think,
and it's at a time when Amuro does not need an outside stressor, given the aforementioned PTSD and action hero role. And we covered this a little last time, but Amuro's general behavior in terms of resisting the military lifestyle in these early episodes, particularly around that, the whole 9 to 12 stretch, plays off a lot better now than maybe it did through the eyes of the community at the time or at large at some points. Like, he's sometimes seen as whiny.
When it made its way over to the States, it made its way over, I believe, after Neon Genesis Evangelion. And at that point, I'm pretty sure...
So the pump was primed.
The pump was primed for people to be angry at a character perceived as whiny, right? And so here's Amuro, right, who does not want to get in the robot father. And people are like, oh, not this shit again. So that's I think why specifically whiny characters around that time were as maligned as they were. And like I'm putting whiny in quotes there because there's this TV trope, right? Right, on TV tropes they call it wankst, which is, like the overplaying how sad a character is about, whatever circumstances. And like, I do not think that's entirely invalid. I do think that this does exist. It even exists like within Gundam.
There are shows that do it. If I were to pull something off the top of my head, and sometimes shows like fucking Tokyo Ghoul, like it's just to focus on the weeb spectrum. Like, I don't know, I could go on fucking sitcom television all day, but that's not really useful to our purposes here.
My favorite example is Shin Asuka from Gundam Seed Destiny, which again we need to fucking watch.
What's the name of the one that basically has the Jesus nails in his palm at all time?
That's also Gundam Seed Destiny. No, that show's fucking wild. It's got like everything went wrong.
Yeah, I kind of need to see a train wreck that fast.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. But yeah, when it comes to the stimuli Amuro is dealing with as the erstwhile child soldier, I don't know. Thing is that, yeah, he complains. But you know what? At his age, I wouldn't complain. Instead, I do something that rhymes with bersertion.
He tries it at one point. It's like, again, really hard to blame the guy.
Yeah, that's around episode, that's like the tail end of this chunk, right? Like around 16? Yeah. It's literally called Amro Desserts, according to my...
Amro Desserts. Which is strange because it happens at the very end of the episode instead of the beginning of it. Because... I don't know. Bright has been mythologized, right? He's been lionized. People fucking love Bright. I love Bright too.
It's interesting coming back.
I think
he's
he very
not
much has to
portrayed
grow
as
into
like
being
perfect.
Bright. Yeah, he's like a kind of a fucking asshole up front.
He's kind of a fucking asshole. He's been thrust into this role he is 3 ranks short of being prepared for.
I would compare him to I had a job once, right? At a place.
Not everyone can relate to that now, Sam.
And it was at a location, right? Where things were always just going so very wrong. Mostly because of the location. I'm being as vague as possible because I don't like to... I don't want to mix professional with... Also professional, I guess, but like whatever.
I get what you mean. Our shit-talking side hustle doesn't need a TM next to it.
The side hustle does not need to bleed into my what
ability
I do
to feed yourself,
salary and vice versa. Yeah. Right. So at this place, right. I had a boss who left. I think he left under the nose of his boss. Took an assignment elsewhere in the company, right? And they transferred someone in to replace him.
Oh, no.
And he was not ready for the brick wall that he was about to have to ram his head up against. I think there's a whole lot of change-ups in lower management. Like my first boss, his boss, right, got replaced by this new guy who was the one who brought in the guy to replace my first boss, right? And that was where the problems began because the old understanding was, yeah, this place is a shit show. There's only so much that we can do to make it, better. And then the new guy comes in and starts declaring, that this is your fault.
Oh boy.
And then he, once my old boss leaves, the new boss transfers in, and he's just not emotionally prepared for it. He's not emotionally prepared for just the endless cavalcade of failure that is running this place.
Did you ever find him just crying softly and rocking back and forth in the supply closet, or?
No, but he was just exhausted and pissed all the time. It's a classic burnout, right? So, I think the latest report that I got on him, right, because I do not work there anymore, the latest report that I got on him is that he's given up on trying to improve the place and is now just trying to keep from getting fired. Right? And I'm like, yeah. So
it's really interesting seeing the spiritual version of the breaking of the wheel. I'm not saying that all management types deserve it, just the plurality of management types. We judge the individual here at Weeaboo Hell.
What happens to Bright feels kind of like that, just the sort of journey that he goes through.
Yeah, and he hasn't even experienced the good casualties yet, so I'm interested to see how that plays out.
And it's mostly just relating to his arc early on in the series. I think once the experience finally hardens him, right? He becomes the Bright that everyone knows and loves, and just appears and reappears and is in not literally every early UC series /OVA/movie, but he's in most of them. I never saw narrative. I have to wonder if he showed up in that one.
And while Bright starts blooming later, I have to say, episodes fucking 10 and 11 are where Char blooms here.
That's where Char went from, the antagonist of this series to, Char Aznavour.
You're all in my Monte Cristo story.
You're all in my Monte Cristo story. I am the Darth Vader of Japan.
People will paint their cars red for years to come because of me. Red cars, red bicycles. You ever see those scooters with two that have like a V-shaped split and you have a leg on each one? Now we're painting those red too for the Red Comet. It's how we do business here. It's a way of life. I guess we should lay some context here. Since we're doing episode overview anyway, and this is, theoretically a review show instead of just a little shrine that we build in the corner to going fast on the left side of the color spectrum. Or the right side, whatever. We have this whole... there's this whole story arc that takes place in, I guess you would call it Zeon High Society, or... Actually, I guess it's Earth High Society, but they're occupied by Zeon. And there is this marginally unintentionally hilarious, maybe just my own sensibility, subplot of this girl who was in love with one of the royal family, right? This guy named Garma.
The Zeon royal family, just for context.
And she is just in love with his space Nazi baby blues. And, fair enough. I'm sure there are people like that. Like, I'm sure someone looked at Himmler and said, "Oh yeah, propaganda me."
It's when she, meets with disapproval from her father, right, about this, that I don't know. I feel like in doing all this, right, I'm kind of I feel like I'm watching the original Star Wars movie and then judging it based on, or like having my judgment be affected by expanded universe shit that was written 20 years later.
Like you're wondering about everyone's midi-chlorian count?
Sort of. It's the fact that that Operation English, right? The colony drop, that was
called Operation English?
Not really. Operation English, yeah. When what they were doing was they were trying to drop the colony on Jaburo in Brazil, which is the Federation High Command. It is their main military base, right? And it missed and hit Australia instead. Fucking continent cannot catch a break, honest to God.
At least they're built to survive.
So that's
if anyone
that is
does,
all we
like
ever
if it's
really...
Australia or Russia, are gonna get a way higher survival percentage than, I don't know, here. Like, I can really imagine the curling up and dying we would get up to. Maybe some rioting beforehand, just to make the situation like 10% worse.
What I'm saying is that at the time, in the text itself, Sydney and a large part of the Australian continent surrounding it is now a crater, right?
Not a fashionable way of life.
Yeah, this event wiped out half of mankind thing. That came later. They sort of decided that later. Yeah, like, I guess they do say, in the opening narration to the series, right, that both Earth and Zeon had their populations decimated by half each, right? It's never really, I don't know. That's still a lot.
A bit of Zeon seems to be colored by Imperial Japan in that this hybrid monarchy makes this powerful opening move for an unsustainable war effort.
Yeah, that's fair. I always have to wonder in shit like this, and like maybe I'm getting into dangerous territory in asking this, but I always have to wonder if perhaps Zeon and how it is portrayed is not perhaps colored, I guess, by the cultural memories, right, present at the time of Imperial Japan. And if a few of those memories, right, might not be a little bit on the sympathetic side.
Man, if we were in a less stressful week in American history, I totally would have gone on a whole rampage just pretending to call you a bigot for 20 minutes. Like, if I wasn't convinced that your heart was 3 seconds away from just exploding from just the constant news fucking disaster, we would really be playing that game right now. Everyone has a perspective from which they are creating, and you are oftentimes either embracing or rejecting some history. I don't think that I don't know. When I look at Xeon, I think that the influence is there, but I don't think I don't think there's really a sympathetic thread to be found. Like, to me, it almost sort of bemoans the tragedy of it. You have this whole government by assassination running along. We had a whole episode of doing Dan Carlin impersonations. We're gonna cut deep on this one, and we going on. You have this unsustainable war effort. You have a lot of the component parts are good people. Like, that's the whole thing with Ramba Raw. Like, he is, in the abstract, in summary, a decent dude who is totally committed to the cause of monarchist space Nazism. And I guess that's what lends it its
the rub.
gray on black morality kind of thing that Gundam trades in often.
I don't know. I'm sort of thinking to American, like Confederate apologists, right? Who sort of like and I'm not like, I don't think that Tomino or anyone in Sunrise, or I'm not actually accusing. I do not mean to accuse anyone of anything here, right?
Again, if you weren't close to having a fucking heart attack, I would just have that Instagram clip titled "Sam accuses Tomino of fucking Imperial Japan revivalism," and say, "Aren't I a scamp, Sam?" And now I think you just fucking mailed me your ear like fucking Van Gogh.
But I look at Rambaral, right, and I am somewhat reminded, or maybe he evokes to me, an American, of like the Lost Causers, right? Or like how Virginia is just like fucking chock full of statues of Confederate generals, just like, oh man, this man, he was such a hero that fought for the Confederacy and slavery. But yeah, this man, a hero, right?
You mean agrarian volunteers, Sam? Agrarian volunteers.
There are always kind of uncomfortable traces of that present in like not just this, but like one or two other anime that have like kind of a military, twinge to it. I know for a fact, the novel that Unicorn Gundam was based on, right, was written by a professed apologist of Imperial
That
Japan.
is wacky, and now I need to read that shit. I guess it becomes one of those questions of like ironic margin or application, but there are multiple anime that had this whole like quasi like military dictatorship, and I think if I were to put them on a spectrum where like, let's say FMA is neutral, where it ultimately opposes one or two of these central figures, but it kind of does revel in sort of this military culture. And on the worst spectrum, you have whatever that fucking isekai is called, where they're in not World War I Germany.
Oh yeah, that one.
I would put this on
the
better end of it. I think it's more using history than reveling in the idea that there was something super noble here. I think that, and man, this is way longer than I usually go without making some kind of half-assed joke. So let me just restore normalcy myself. Okay, reset to normal. I think that there's something to be said for applying the associations that the built-in audience they have with history to maybe make some point about warfare itself and these militaristic cultures. Like, if you're from that background, you're not going to, lampshade hang, I don't know, Mesopotamian emperors or fucking Shays Rebellion. It's going to have shades of that thing, right? Because that's really because ultimately that's really what you're going to be interested. Like, it would be extremely strange for me to fire some broadside shots at King Tut instead of maybe looking at some of the weird shit hanging over in America's psyche in my own work. So I guess I can understand the idea of this overlay of sort of that particular strain of military dictatorship. Man, there are so many flavors of military dictatorship in history. You can really just make one of those fucking soda machines where it can put any of them together from the component juices.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I will accept that. I kind of like the idea of reading Mobile Suit Gundam and a whole bunch of the military science fiction that came out around this time in anime as sort of Japan kind of re-examining and reconciling its very recent past. Like, I think at this point, World War II was 30 years in the past, right? Like there's a whole bunch of people who fought for the Empire of Japan who are like middle-aged at this point, right? They're still alive.
Yeah, you have veterans just out
like
there,
they have kids,
stuck in traffic.
Yeah, they have kids, they have families. They're telling everyone about how things were and how things went, and that generation, right, is growing up and looking at the Japan of now and hearing about the Japan of then. And I do believe that the American occupation had ended at this point. In fact, I believe it did not actually go on for that amazingly long, but I could be wrong, right? And you've got them knowing that they are not allowed to have an army. They've got, a self-defense force, but it's small. It's not like a standing army, right? There's a whole bunch of shit that they're just not allowed to fucking get up to, and there's only like a couple countries in the world that have such restrictions placed on them right now, right? And I like thinking about, or it's interesting rather, thinking about the environment that this creates, that they thus, choose to work shit out in, through, the medium of anime.
Yeah, especially as someone who is just as engaged with the basic idea of human conflict as Tomino. Like, it's, I guess, the core series fixation. Well, I guess that and interesting mechanical designs.
Oh, I mean, like, let's not kid ourselves here. It's the mechanical designs that brought me to Gundam. But no, it's the it is the ultimately kind of bleak. Bleak is a word that I could use.
Not inaccurate. No one's gonna say
that it draws.
Actually,
yeah, the kind of bleak conclusions that it draws about just humans and what it is.
Is it just the last 30 seconds of Holy Wars on loop? Just Dave Mustaine shouting mercy, killings, killings, killings. That seems to be the basic fucking philosophical conclusion of Gundam.
But then again, you could actually end up rejecting the message of Mobile Suit Gundam, right? And what I understand that message to be is that humans will always find a good reason to kill one another, right? And they'll always find fun new ways to destroy one another, right? You could end up rejecting this reading, right, by saying, no, not humans, rulers, right? So since like humans, right, as a species have never had a period in time when we weren't run by power hungry assholes, right?
Oh man, that is the best fucking Onion article of all time.
Yeah, absolutely, I love it, and it's it's fun to kind of like talk about that, right? It's kind of fun to think about that, like, is it really in our nature to destroy one another?
Or is there a problem with the Zabi family and the Federation High Brass just yeeting logic out the window at every possible term?
What I'm mostly just saying is it in the nature of, power hungry asshole 1, right, to want to kill power hungry asshole 2, or honestly, not even to kill power hungry asshole 2, to send a bunch of his guys to kill power hungry asshole 2's guys in, an effort to, like, get one over.
It's
a
theory
right?
of international relations that is very much like multiplayer Pac-Man. I don't know if you've seen those arcade booths, but 4 people trying to eat each other when there are a bunch of ghosts that could screw them over at any given point. And, those ghosts could be famine or human tragedy, but
So I think rulers, right, will always find a reason to want to kill one another, or at least to one-up one another by, sending their poor, right, to kill their rivals' poor, right? But I don't, so maybe I'm just evolving my understanding of the Gundam franchise, right? Because in the Gundam franchise, you've always got like all of these assholes and okay people.
It's like there are a lot of okay people on the ground and a lot of assholes on both sides in very different ratios, pulling the strings, and
and you sort of end up with like people who are kind of there by circumstance. You've got your true believers. You've got the Federation that has its fair share of complete fucking assholes. Again, not even in half the ratios.
Much fancier clothing. Like
that
a lot of
Zeon's
they really
got.
have the filigree down in Zeon. A lot of what you see in this dinner party, which I am now remembering, I was summarizing to describe Char's fun little breakout moment.
So remember half an hour
ago, kids. They're essentially at this high society party for people that either sucking up to them or hate them for wiping out half the human fucking population.
Which, would not hold it against you.
And
not if you wiped out half the human population, but if you hated someone for wiping out half the... Go on.
And as a supposed childhood friend, I don't know, goes through this sort of intentionally silly love plot, you just get all of Char's narration going, yes, fool, soon.
Soon.
So there's a specific line where he says, romance on the front lines, you're still just some spoiled rich kid, which is just sort of funny in light of the drivers of future conflict. So I don't know, put that in the back pocket if you're listening, I guess. There's just some hilariously rank pocket, like, yeah, who'd do that shit? oh, let me die. I also had one of those, I don't know, fucking lefty DSA guillotine moments when the Harris that Garma's in the midst of trying to play the seduction game with says, I don't care about the problems between Zeon and the Federation. Again, half the human population. I just have the word get the guillotines written
guillotine
down 3 times. Guillotine go burr indeed.
Guillotine go
tink tink tink. It's like a little fucking tin soldier there. But all this is to say that wrapped up in these orchestrations of like chasing glory and butts, Char just casually leads Garma into the protagonist as a murder method.
So here's the great thing. I think these two events happen in the same episode, and I have to imagine that Char got drunk at this party because he was there too, right? He was there too, watching Garma have his like dumbass little star-crossed lovers thing happen, and then afterwards they left so that he could go betray Garma and have him die. So I have to imagine one or both of them got drunk at this party, and this is one of those Dan Carlin moments where he's like, how do you figure? How many decisions do you think were made? History-altering decisions were made by someone who was drunk. Throughout history, it's got to be more than a couple, right?
It's got to be a ton,
right? So
the Khans love to drink. Don't you think that at some point on the trail, Genghis or Kublai just look to the east and look to the west? And the reason we don't live in New Khania is simply a right turn.
So it's kind of fun imagining the scene in that context.
Yeah, that's fun. That's a fun point.
Just Char being lightly sauced, right? While, watching this play out. And honest to God, that sounds like a whole lot of fun. Just, you're about 3 deep and you get to see, act 1 of your revenge play out just as you'd orchestrated it. Honest to God. Sometimes you want to be Char. Like, he's empty inside. He feels nothing for other people. So I don't think I really want to be Char, but
hey, it's not empty. He's full of like a sort of low-key smoldering resentment in my experience.
Fair enough. But every now and again I do wish that I could live out, just a couple of the moments in his life. Because they seem like they were just deeply satisfied.
And another reason that this thing is amusing, other than, once again, him just shouting, blame this on the circumstances of your birth as Garma burns alive.
Which, again, chef's kiss.
Is that this is the specific point in the series, I think, when the sort of general tragedy level gets dialed up from a sort of a constant 7 to more of a spiking between, 5 and 11. Mm-hmm. And in early tragedy spikes, albeit occasionally one of the sillier ones, is Garma. Can you be a widow of a booty call? Can you be a widow pre-engagement? Because that's how she acts. It's kind of an interesting character in a way.
Oh, she's the whole it's the crusading widow archetype, right? Except it goes about as well as it probably actually would.
Yeah, it's a Crusading Widow archetype, only she has half a leg to stand on.
Like, literally. I don't want to... When Iselina, right, is her name, right? She tries to get her revenge, right, by... I think she goes out either in a mobile suit or something.
Specifically,
or whatever, right?
She was either goading the pilot over taking the reins at one point, maybe both, but of this big floating aircraft carrier type of thing, like helicarrier type thing, and
she goes out and she points a gun at Amuro, I believe, right, who is outside of his Gundam for whatever reason, right? And then I'm gonna sound like a fucking dick here, right?
Oh, we're trading seats. Hold on, let me whip out some.
I'm gonna sound like such a fucking dick here, but like this is what the text is giving us here. The text seems to want you to believe that like she just has this, I don't know, like female moment and falls to her death. She right? Again,
dies of a broken heart, Sam. It's what fucking happened. She walks out of that plane fine, and then despair.
And I reiterate, this is what I believe that the text is trying to convey to me. This is not my interpretation of her character. This is what I believe they are actually trying to say is happening. Or something. It's a strange scene, and I don't get it.
Well, I think that we will at least sound less like vapid fanboy cultists when I just say, yeah, that's weird. I'm not sure why they did that. They could have done other things.
That's super weird.
There are other choices on the table.
If you were going to have her get killed off, then I figure like a better way of doing it is, you know, sort of like a suicide by cop kind of angle, or just a doomed and misjudged attempt at revenge that ends with her getting shot or something. Not, again, succumbing to vague weakness.
That would have been better. It would have been more active for both of them, instead of her falling to widow's disease, which I'm sure used to be in the fucking DSM, and Amuro saying, well,
I have no doubts.
That was weird. I didn't like that.
Wonder who she was.
I wish that didn't happen, I guess.
Who is that?
And then going back to his regularly scheduled trauma carousel.
Yeah.
But I guess I shouldn't underrate that on the carousel. That was like a day stop on the cruise.
Do we want to talk about the episode with his mom now?
Oh yeah, that's a good idea, because that is one of the finest episodes of this thing.
Oh, absolutely. I think it is probably a couple of the later episodes are really fucking cool, but I think they're like the result of a culmination of a whole bunch of stuff. But this is my favorite single, like, self-contained story in this.
Yeah, this is one of those nice, I know, Star Trek land in his own, stay in his own for a bit episodes. And what happens here, the basic setup is that Amuro lands a fighter jet on Earth for reasons, and he runs into his mother, who is a doctor and a pacifist, and they have contrasting opinions about his current position and whether he should continue fighting.
It's real great because I had this literature professor. Why do I keep making it an SH? I had this lit professor
that cool?
in college who he was so fucking cool. And he spoke of this kind of recurring type of scene, right? Which is the scene where, you know, you have characters sort of sitting there looking at, you know, the sort of scene in front of them and saying, how could this happen? Just as events sort of not quite beyond their control, but, you know, beyond their understanding, right, have played out and led them to the unfortunate place that they now find themselves, right? And they're just kind of wondering, like, how and why. Not why could this happen to me, or how could this happen to me, but how could this happen?
Yeah. The linchpin of this episode is just sort of his mother stuck in that role where, hey, if you're a, you know, lifelong pacifist and your son comes back, I don't know, somewhere, I guess a less dicky version, one of those guys from Top Gun, but with the body count.
Yeah, it's up there.
You might be a little disappointed. Like, you might rather that he was just a complete burnout, or even depending on the depths of your convictions, dead in a way. Which, by the way, I sing the praises of the origin comic law, and it's still a great sequence in the origin, but weirdly enough, the original show here kind of balances the moral question between the two a little better. Like in
she's played up to be a little bit more unpleasant
to my memory, right? And maybe I'm totally wrong here, and I just, I don't know, drink too much. But she, in the comic, I remember her going basically from 0 to "I have no son."
I think when she's very upset, when she's very upset, like around like 2/3 of the way through this show, and they're in the middle of the argument, right? She says like, "Oh, I'm ashamed to call you my son," but it very much feels like her saying something she doesn't mean because like she's angry and like she's distraught to have seen her son, become
I found all that
is,
much
is,
very organic here, and I appreciated that. I appreciated the timbre of their discussion. And you have those little things that are familiar no matter how much of a smaller scale or stakes you've had it. Like, you've had these conversations with your parents about the direction in your life, and it captures that emotion well, but the stage is much bigger, which I guess ultimately is all you can really ask for from a space opera. Like, you are just looking for the human experience on a melodramatic stage.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the best moment in this episode is obviously for me, when they say goodbye, right? And she kind of doesn't know him anymore, right? And all he can do is salute her and then leave. There's this sort of thing that happens, right? When someone has gone off and had things happen to them, right? And you've been right here, right? And they come back. And they're an entirely different person, right? To you, at the very least. But then you look at them, right? And I remember that Chernobyl miniseries from last year.
I still haven't caught it. I am behind human civilization.
It has a great little scene where just this soldier, right, is talking about the fact that it's like, oh yeah, you're expecting war to change you, to turn you into a different person after you've killed someone. But, you kill someone, you go to sleep, you wake up, and you're still you. And so, and you've got that happening,
like
right?
A great
and
sequence.
Then you have to... Oh, it was, fucking fantastic. It was Sam Core.
Hey, let's upgrade our hate
there.
now. Let's tell people let's say that Chernobyl is anime and review Chernobyl and see just... I don't know, I want to go from, irked tweets to letter bombs. That's my goal for my podcasting career.
I think if we want letter bombs, we need to just review Joe Rogan's podcast as if it is an anime and just be as unrelenting towards it as we are towards Isekai. That's how we get motherfuckers to start
we might get some bipartisan anger on that one. It'll be a fucking party.
So you have that whole experience there, right? Of, just having to live with yourself, having changed, but still having to be you. And then encountering someone, right? Who just knows you as you, right? They don't know these experiences. They have not experienced this pain. They
think that a gelgoog is a funny sounding word.
Yeah, right? They don't understand the sort of trauma of having to still be you even after everything. So that's what I really like about the interactions between Amuro and his mother in this
it is
episode.
Extremely well realized, and I know it's almost I shouldn't say growing the beard because the whole series has been interesting as a whole through now and has had those moments like the woman standing in the crater of her hometown. But I think that
and this is also after the scene with Char, blame this on the circumstance of your birth.
Yeah, but so I guess I could actually just say this is one of the strongest in a series in a set of the sort of early iconic moments.
Yeah, just the sort of, God, this sucks sort of thing. That
future warfare is not going to be any more fun than the times we're used to, huh? It's gonna keep on trucking back.
Yeah, there's something about this that, like, this series I think exists partly because of Star Wars, but it is very much anti-Star Wars in its message.
Yeah, there's not a lot of fun to be had unless you're in Double Zeta. Then, for a good while, there's some fun to be had.
Or like G Gundam, but again, that is a super robot
okay,
show.
So I finally found a way to express my love of G Gundam. When we describe like Godspeed or like every other post-rock shit, the fucking line music critics love to use is using elements of rock for purposes other than rock. And that is what fucking G Gundam is. It is using the medium of Gundam to just make joy.
I'm trying to think if there's anything like G Gundam, just among other franchises, and the closest thing I can think of off the top of my head, and it's not a charitable comparison. This is not intentional on my part, but I'm just thinking of Metal Gear Survive.
That is very amusing. I would come closer to Metal Gear Rising.
Yes, that's a fantastic. Yeah, absolutely.
That really feels like the precise wavelength of original property to Cokehead spin-off. Not Crackhead, Cokehead, very different.
I don't know. Metal Gear Solid always had quite a few Cokehead. Metal Gear Solid was
crazy, but it wasn't crazy in the 4chan sense.
Like K-U-H.
Yeah, there were like people. You weren't like punting motorcycles at people, or your talking wolf friend with chainsaw tail.
I think I still have the soundtrack to that game somewhere. I think the copy, like the deluxe edition, comes with the soundtrack, like just on its own CD.
That's wonderful. I'm really glad you have a hard copy of that. That's something I really do miss about a lot of AAA and AA gaming, and actually, way more of a AAA problem. Like double is fine, but just big ticket releases with that much personality don't seem to happen as much anymore. Like I'm playing Horizon Zero Dawn right now. Excellent game on so many fronts, but you really can feel that the personal edges of that thing are just sanded off by committee. And I am supremely drifting away from the topic of Gundam right now, so I am going to wind that one right the fuck back.
All right, fair enough.
There's a little episode that's sort of on an island by itself in terms of what happens, where a few Zeon soldiers take a crack at just destroying the Gundam using some infantry tactics and some bombs.
It's not a great episode. I don't think.
It's weird. I don't know, I guess in every other episode, there's a lot going on that feeds into what happened before, what happens later, and all this stuff just feels like an island. Like, I guess that just makes it, oh god, I'm going to use the F word. I'm going to say, I get the essence of filler there. I do like the idea that the Zeon holds a sort of fash USO show for its soldiers on their off time with weird magicians.
Oh yeah, that was interesting. I remember to make this premise work, they had to really, really put some scotch tape on some shit. Like, a bunch of dudes fly around the Gundam in hover bikes, right? Plant, plastic explosives on it, and then leave. And then say,
shucks, if only we had remote triggers.
We just need to wait. If only we had remote triggers, but they're too cheap. Or supply is too cheap to give them to us. And I'm like, if you couldn't get the premise to work, don't use the premise. Come up with another premise for an episode and get that one to work. Yeah, I wouldn't buy that
for something set in the fucking 1980s in contemporary Earth. You're telling me in the fucking future, in our space colonies, the standard plastic explosive does not come with a portable fuck you button?
Detonator. Like, here's the other thing that doesn't work. they're on a timer, right? They're understood to be on a timer, right? That requires a mechanism, right? That requires like a detonator. That it. So like, no, I do not believe, because like
you're lying to me. You're just
I
fucking
don't
lying to
believe
me.
that'd
Kiss
be
my
that
ass.
much more expensive. It's just such a fucking strained premise, and I'm just kind of frustrated sitting through it.
So yeah, that's not the series peak there, so to speak. And some of the stuff with Amuro showing a little of his growth as a soldier there is nice. Otherwise, it's a slow one. This chunk of episodes also does have our peak to this point, so keep on trucking, White Base.
The bit with Sayla, hijacking the Gundam for whatever reason, and like again, I still don't quite understand why. I think it was so that
She's trying to figure out if her brother, who she has discovered as Char, is alive, basically. So she has what I can only call, and I think usually you're only supposed to apply this term to males, but what, we're in a Bolden era. She comes up with this dick-brained scheme, right, to fucking hijack the Gundam and go talk to some Zeon pilots on the front line.
I don't know why she needed the Gundam for this. Typically, you tend to just approach with a white flag. That's the surrender /
Yeah, that is a great idea.
Whatever.
It's also a thing they do in a preceding episode when they dealt with the fucking refugees. So clearly, communication is possible. I don't know. It's weird. And it's Life Force.
One of the things that frustrates me about Gundam sometimes, and this is recurring, like this does not stop with Mobile Suit Gundam. It happens like in every single entry in this franchise, just about. In Universal Century, I'll say, is just people doing weird shit for barely understood reasons. You just have no idea why the hell someone is doing the thing.
If I were to characterize that flaw, and I'm going back to the video game thing because quarantine, and guess what I've been doing when we were not watching fucking anime? It really does feel like one of those "but thou must" video game moments. Like just in the corner of fucking Sayla's UI, just. Find information about Char. Steel Gundam. I'm not sure that's a good Steel Gundam.
Steel Gundam. Yeah, no, and you're just like playing this game, being like, no, why am I an idiot now?
That's weird. But yeah, it's still a good crop of episodes overall. Some classic moments. Something that's been interesting. We've been watching the dub for this because that's what we've got, and there are voice actors of every letter grade on this, which is interesting. It definitely runs the fucking gamut. It
was one of those kind of early days of the anime boom where they were kind of just they took what they could fucking get.
They very much did.
I want to say this is like 2001 or so when this got dubbed, right? So Pokemon had crossed over not even 5 years ago. People were watching Dragon Ball Z, yeah, but like there was not really a culture around it. There was not really they didn't have any reason to throw any sort of money at this.
You didn't see kids in your high school hallways with strange headbands yet.
It's just sort of a fuck you, they'll buy it, or fuck you, you'll buy it sort of thing, where it's like, look, if we put this much money into it, right? This much small amount of money into it, and maybe we see like, a little bit of a return. Now the returns are quite a bit larger because anime has entered the mainstream, and I'm very glad that it has.
Honestly, it opens a lot of doors. It makes a lot of other things possible. It also just ensures that they will keep making these fucking shows as they make money.
Yeah, I mean, like, and localization has just improved so vastly since the era of Carl Macek.
And something else to be excited for is that it seems that someone has attached jumper cables to the idea of long-form action adventure in Western animation, so I'm glad that seems to be happening. Knock
it's true.
on
I was
wood.
Worried for a second there. Yeah, exactly. As long as Hiraka and your One Piece keep doing gangbusters, then fine, let them.
Another thing I wanted to speaking of just that whole Western animation boom, and this is not related to Gundam, we've pretty much wrapped up our take on these episodes. Just in comparison to the fucking Castlevania episode, that entire action sequence that's just Isaac versus City is fucking beast.
Honestly, the thing is that it got overshadowed for me, like literally the episode later when they go into the church basement and just like, oops, it's a portal to hell.
You know what that means, kids.
You know, it's Friday. You all know what that means.
Yep. Shout out to Mr. Brody Lee, recently unshackled and now throwing in maybe one of the more amusing shots fired at one's former manager that I've seen in my time on Earth.
I did not actually catch it. What was it?
All right, so I'm not saying that his character as the Exalted One is literally Vince, but he is like 20% Vince. It's fucking crazy. I love it. Anyway, mankind is fearing its own deeds. This is Weeaboo Hell.
It's been Weeaboo Hell.
I am Dennard Dayle, a.k.a. Blind Monkey.
And I am Sam Lagow, a.k.a. Mute Monkey.
When World War III rolls around, don't serve. Just don't serve. You ever seen that tweet? You're like, what are you fucking doing? What are you fucking doing?
What if they gave a war and no one came?
Like, what if World War III was just fucking, I don't know, George Bush's kid and Putin's kid just fighting in a sandbox outside while everyone else just got drunk? Can't we do that one? Can't we do that one? Won't that be a fun time?
Why don't presidents fight the war? Why do they always send the poor?
It would be so much simpler. It was so much simpler. The philosopher Serge Tankian had it all figured out.
We had it figured out in like 2003, and we still haven't like gotten with the fucking program
come on, folks.
Yet.
All this info is out there. In crime films, the new gang in town swerves slowly through the streets, staring down the locals. Quarantine cops kind of drive the exact same way. If they had rims, more people would stay inside.